We know how it feels to be treated like a trophy. Waxed, buffed, and shined. Driven to award shows, parties, and across so many silver screens. We have seen the glory come, go, and come again. But a Cadillac is no trophy, no museum piece. This is our future, and it will inspire every car that follows. Intermission is over. This is how we drive the world forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce you to the Cadillac Escala concept. For the Escala concept, and how does it represent Cadillac's mission moving forward with daring designs?
Okay. So with any great concept, we do start with a really strong brief. And the idea that we had was one of simplicity, in that it was about design a car that you would love yourself to drive. We added a little complexity to it by saying it should also be a car that you could be chauffeur driven in. So for the designers, it was intriguing. You know, I want a car that I can drive, but that I can also be driven in. And that's really what led to the car. So we wanted to have really two different personalities for the vehicle. So sitting in the rear should obviously be a really relaxing experience, but sitting in the front should be an engaging driving experience. So I guess the first thing is, when I moved into this role, for me, I wanted to have an education of what is Cadillac really about. So with Ed Welburn, we went through the Heritage Center and we looked at lots of the previous concepts. And what I noticed is each concept was different to the one before, but they all had something in common, and that was this bold, optimistic design and this integration of technology. So in that way, I would say this concept is very like the concepts that have come before it. But in reality, it's also about evolving the DNA of the vehicle. So taking the design forward into the future, not looking back. And that really was, the design philosophy. The designers embraced it. My message to them was it shouldn't be mistaken for any other Cadillac, and it certainly shouldn't be mistaken for any other brand. So I'd say certainly the headlamps and tail lamps are something that we're really excited about, because we already kind of own this vertical light signature, but I don't want it to get stale. It has to continue to evolve. So I'd say the sinister front end of the Escala is something that you'll see, or certainly it will influence future products going forward. And the rear end as well. It's not just a simple vertical lamp anymore. There's a whole lot of detail to it. And again, I want to make sure that that influences future products. So I guess there's a couple of features I really like. If I had to pick one, the rotary controller in the center of the vehicle is really a beautiful piece of jewelry. We wanted it to be something that was really celebrated. The whole interior is almost swirling around this rotary controller. It has layer upon layers of detail. It was inspired by something that I'm quite fond of, which is vintage watches. But it's also inspired by vintage Cadillacs. And in particular, you'll see floating in the center is a reinterpretation of the classic goddess that Cadillac had through the 30s and 40s. It's a fairly complex paint. It's hard to describe, but it's about 9 different layers. The last layer is a fairly inky tinted black layer to really give it a lot of drop-off. But it was, again, we had talked about the inspiration of the goddess. So the name of the paint is Gaia, inspired by that goddess. But it certainly is a color that has warmth to it, but we didn't want it to be any particular color. It was more about the mood. Sophistication.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, in the flesh, it's a pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
Color.
Yeah. Every time I've seen it, it's been a little bit different, and it's able to pull the lines out.
Yeah.
Which can be subtle, and it's
well, and that was really important when we chose the color, because we don't want this to look like an origami car. You know, we have a few simple lines, but we want everybody to understand the sophistication of the surfacing. When you see this tomorrow in the sunlight, it'll be completely different.
excellent. I'm sure everyone can't wait to see it in the sunlight because it has a lot of amazing details.
Yeah.
So Andrew, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for designing such a beautiful car.
Thank you. It's obviously an exciting time to be working at Cadillac. Over the last year and a half, we've unveiled several new vehicles, including the first ever CT6, the all-new CTSV, and the XT5 crossover. It's also an exciting time in the studio for the design team. We're working at a faster pace than we've ever worked before, delivering on the promise of bold, sophisticated, and optimistic vehicles that further elevate the brand and deliver a promise of American luxury. The groundwork was laid some time ago when Uwe, myself, and others sat down and talked about the future and where we would take the Cadillac brand. And it's exciting now to have a framework that we can use to guide us in the development of product. And you'll see that with our latest concept, where we continue to push in the luxury space for vehicles that are all about passion. At the launch of the CL concept in 2011, there was always the plan to have 3 vehicles, and they were framed as the journey, the drive, and the arrival. The journey was a large open-air convertible, enjoying the journey, the CL concept. The follow-up in 2013 was the El Mirage, which was all about the driving experience. And here we are at Escala, the arrival. The name Escala is Spanish for scale, and I think scale is something that's very important when we talk about a luxury vehicle, about having the right proportions, the right stance, and the right scale to truly befit a brand like Cadillac. The initial idea for this concept actually came from Pebble Beach itself, from the Concours, walking around and looking at vehicles from our heritage, and in particular looking at the duality or the split personality of vehicles, where you have these chauffeur-driven vehicles up front and this very luxurious interior in the rear. Transition is a major theme. First of all, for me, when I think about the brand Cadillac, we talk about it being bold, sophisticated, and optimistic, and the transition between those characteristics. Secondarily, I think about transitions when I think about the journey that our brand is on as we continue to elevate the brand back to its former position as a luxury standard of the world. And thirdly, I think about transitions in a very literal sense, about the different feel that you have front to rear in this vehicle and the different experiences you have driving and being driven. The scale and the dynamic proportions of this vehicle give it presence. When you look at the surfacing, it is sheer and simple, and yet when you get close, it's sophisticated. This vehicle signifies the future direction for Cadillac surfacing. The detailing front and rear, the face and the tail of the vehicle also show how we are continuing to explore the evolution for Cadillac. Lighting signature in particular is something that we're really excited about on this vehicle, and you'll see it influence future production vehicles. Escala also gave interior designers a chance to explore. You'll see that in the vehicle. We have a very different approach to luxury, a somewhat American approach. It also has a duality to the interior. The feeling of the front where you drive the vehicle and the feeling in the rear where you're being driven are quite different.
and you'll see an amazing use of materials in this interior. The use of leather, but also introducing fabrics, and the juxtaposition of metal and wood, and the amazing transition in between. I certainly want to applaud the work of the color and trim and the fabrication team in doing something amazing in this car. The artistic integration of technology has always been a foundation for Cadillac product, and Escala is no different. It breaks new ground with the integration of a very large OLED curved screen sitting up front in a unique way on a curved wood surface. While the use of technology in the front of the vehicle was very overt, we wanted to do something more covert in the rear of the vehicle, and the rear seat entertainment system is something that customers will find incredibly unique. As we develop the future portfolio for Cadillac, creating vehicles like Escala is an opportunity for designers to really explore where we want to take the DNA of the brand, where we want to take proportion, surface, detailing, features. While Escala is a fantastic vision of Cadillac's future, we're working diligently on the future product portfolio for Cadillac, including luxury sedans and luxury crossovers, one of our biggest growth segments globally. Each of these vehicles will have its own unique personality, but will also be distinctly Cadillac. Launching Escala is a chance for us to sit back and reflect on the work we've done for this brand. But honestly, it's also a chance to realize that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take an amazing brand like Cadillac and propel it into the future. The work of the designers, sculptors, engineers, and the fabrication team that brought this vehicle to life is truly inspiring. For those of you who see it in the flesh, you'll know what I mean. On behalf of the leadership team, I want to say thank you to everybody who had a hand in delivering such a fantastic vehicle. I want to say thank you for the entrepreneurial spirit that brought this vehicle to life. And I want you to know that vehicles like this have an incredible influence on the future